G'day, and welcome to this week's episode of We Used to Be Journos. It is the podcast where two media insiders break down broken news. I'm Fran. Who are you?
I'm Antoinette Lattouf, and I'm a little bit nasal today, so bear with me.
Nasal?
I'm a little bit clogged up. A few people noticed that last week I sounded unwell. I'm still struggling to shake off this bit of a cold or virus or whatever, but
I'm sure our listeners will be forgiving to the nasal voice. You sound fine to me.
Thanks, Jan. You're looking a little bit like a banana this week. And I have to talk about B1 and B2 because last week we were in...
Some people are listening to this, so they don't know what I'm wearing, which is a yellow shirt.
With some stripes.
With some black and white stripes, not blue and white stripes. But I take your point.
Yes, because last week we were both wearing our black Ederati members only shirts, and I said that we were B1 and B2, and then you made a comment about, it's only the cartoon now, they don't have the live performance, but it sounds like we have quite a few ABC executive listeners because within a few days, the live performance of B1 and B2 was announced. It's making a comeback, and I reckon we did it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how quick and effective we are here at Media.
Amazing. And you're right, we probably do have a lot of ABC executives listening to this podcast. Probably not for the reasons of reinstating children's television, but nonetheless, hello to all the executives currently listening.
And hello to our Ederati, because if you want us to do more effective work, like forcing the ABC to bring back B1 and B2, because definitely wasn't a coincidence.
No, the highlight of 2026 already. Yeah.
You need to become a subscriber. So here's a little reminder to head to etmedia.com, because we can only stay independent if we have your support, and we can only force the hand of children programming with your support. Isn't that right, Jan?
Yes. I mean, among the myriad of other things that we do as well, that's not the most important one, but, relevant nonetheless.
Exactly.
So that is etmedia.com, E-T-T-E media.com. Head on over. Meanwhile, what is in the show today?
Jan, it's another big one. So we're going to start with the no's, and my no goes to the Victorian Premier Jacinta Allan and her handling of a press conference, because it was a question and a comment that came from a journo that she did not like. And I reckon, I have an inkling that she saw it as an opportunity to dodge the question and accountability.
I saw that little moment, but I don't know too much about the background of it. So I'm looking forward to having that explained to me as well. I have a no, and it goes to Donald Trump for...
so many things, but what time this week?
Such a perennial thing to say. My no is for Donald Trump. Boring. No, it's for what I believe is the political strategy that he is employing when he talks about releasing government files pertaining to aliens, which he has done this past week. I will explain what that political strategy is, what it has to do with the dead cat, and also a particular Australian.
Okay. And our big chat in the second half of the show, it's about celebrities and politics. Should they speak, and when, and also what the role of the media is in prodding them about things like government overreach, democratic freedoms, complicity in Gaza, and of course this is in light of the BAFTAs, the Berlinale. And we want to spend a bit of time talking about some public figures who are put on the spot, some of their hilarious and underwhelming responses, but also just this whole area of when celebs should speak. Do they have an obligation to speak? When does it backfire? And, a whole bunch of our thoughts.
Yeah, it's fertile ground to explore, and there's no super clear answer.
No.
But there is an answer that is clearer than other answers. Yeah. So we'll get to that. I have a yes this week, as I will continue to do every week.
Unless it's forced. Unless you have permission from our audience that if it feels really forced, that they want the honesty.
This one was not forced.
Great.
And it goes to an independent, of course, news publishing organisation that actually exists on Substack. It has 700,000 subscribers. It has done some of the finest reporting I have seen on the Epstein files.
Okay.
I will reveal the name later in the show in my yes.
And my yes goes to a sharp podcast that's doing some digging into Palantir. It also has exclusive information on how the Australian government money props Palantir up, exactly what Palantir is doing. It's obviously a data and surveillance business linked to ICE raids, and and the unfolding genocide in Gaza. So what on earth is the government's money doing there? That is my yes later in the show.
Okie dokie. Before we get to the yeses, we have to start with the no's. Why don't you start actually with Jacinta Allen?
Okay, let me unpack this for you.
Tell me what's going on.
Okay, so my no goes to Victorian Premier Jacinta Allan. She was at a press conference. There was a particular line of questioning she didn't like from a political reporter. And I suspect she latched onto an offhanded comment the reporter made as a way to dodge the question. I'll get to that in a moment.
Okay.
I think we probably need some context about what the Premier was being grilled on. And it's probably one of the most significant state political issues of the time, and it's corruption at the CFMEU, the Construction, Forestry and Mining Union. So a little bit of context. The Premier has been facing a lot of scrutiny in recent days because there have been bombshell claims that have alleged this Victorian big build project, which was done via the construction union, may have cost taxpayers $15 billion. So this information is off the back of a report by barrister Jeffrey Watson. It's a 139-page document. It came out last Wednesday, and it focuses on the corruption in the Victorian branch of the CFMEU. And part of that claims underworld figures and bikies exerted influence over work sites and jobs. And it finds this long-term drift into this alleged criminal activity of the state's major infrastructure project. Allegations include drug distribution, bribery, intimidation.
Okay.
And it's bad, right? And so she's under pressure because we found out all of this by this report by the barrister, including that $15 billion amount linked to this Victoria Big Build projects.
Okay.
So, big story. Yeah. Government is under a lot of pressure and a lot of scrutiny. So the day after this report comes out, there's a press conference with the Premier.
Yeah, and that's the one where, you get the Premier in front of microphones. There's
and
a whole bunch of journos.
People want to ask her about these findings. And specifically, Jess Maggio, she's Channel 10's political reporter. She's formerly worked as New Zealand's bureau chief for Sky News Australia. This is the question she puts to the Premier. Okay.
Do you accept that some of the bad actors that you say have been weeded out, they may still be controlling the scene?
No. Hang on.
Okay, so you can hear it might be a little bit difficult to hear the reporter, but the reporter is saying, because she's off mic, do you accept that some of the bad actors that you say have been weeded out are still involved in the CFMEU and still making calls?
Still controlling the
CFMEU, these underworld figures. Before the question is asked, the Premier jumps back in. No, hang on.
Hang on.
So
let's be...
Hang on. Before the reporter has even said, some of these people are too terrified to go to police, because also in that 139-page report, there were allegations from people who had been working with the CFMEU or who are contractors saying that they have this information. They're too scared to go to police because of the underworld figures involved. So the reporter hadn't yet finished that bit before the Premier was like, hang on. And now the Premier changes tactics.
Let's be clear. If you have evidence of that, you should not be putting that to me only in a press conference. You should be immediately going to police headquarters and reporting that to Victoria Police. If you have that information...
And the reporter is saying, but they are frightened for their lives. They're saying to people in the media, they're saying to Jeffrey Watson that they are too scared to go to police.
They're saying to people in the media that they're scared. They're saying to Jeffrey Watson they don't feel they can report it because they have already uprooted their lives for fear of people that are no longer in the CFMEU but are controlling the CFMEU.
They're fearing for their lives for people who are no longer officially in the CFMEU, but who are still controlling the CFMEU.
Okay.
And at this point, this is the important point, Jacinta Allen either looks annoyed or she looks away. For those who are watching, you can see the clip. She kind of looks upwards. The reporter says, you look disinterested.
Okay.
Because Jacinta Allen kind of goes and looks up. Okay, and this is where things really turn interesting.
I'll make 2 points on this. And can I ask that you retract that last point?
Well, Premier, I'm really sorry.
No, you're not. Can I ask
that you retract that last point, asking the reporter to retract the you look disinterested? She goes, Premier, I'm really sorry, but... And then the Premier jumps back in. No, you're not.
No, you're not. Could I ask that you retract that last comment?
I
would ask that you retract that last comment. This is an incredibly serious matter that I'm working incredibly hard on. I'd ask that for this press conference to continue, I ask that you retract that last observation. I was merely considering my answer to your question. I'd ask you to retract that observation.
Premier, do you agree with the
I'd ask that Jess.
So
What
she
a
doesn't
piece of
retract.
theatre.
She doesn't retract that observation. Another journalist tries to jump in and ask another question, because this is how press conferences work. You just, as soon as you can jump in and you try and get your question in. The Premier tells this other reporter
That Jess retracts that observation.
Okay, I'm not answering this until Jess retracts that other observation. She stands there and just kind of hops up and down. You can hear sirens.
No. I think
Somebody else tries to ask a question. No. This press conference won't continue.
because I'm not going to stand here and be accused of something I haven't done, and I would ask that you retract
Which is look
that.
disinterested.
If I'm happy to answer other people's questions,
Well, not really, because she's swatted away 2 questions.
but I can't unless I have that very clear.
She can't. She can't answer
that
anyone else's
allegation
questions,
of how
you guys.
I was behaving is retracted. It's up to you if you don't want to do it.
It's up to you. Now
I'll
the
take
ball's in your
your,
court.
I'll
What are
take
you
your
going to
silence that you agree that you have retracted your
I will
statement.
take your silence that you've agreed that you've retracted your statement.
Because in the interest of supporting your colleagues, I
Look
will
at
allow
that.
this to continue. But I want to be clear.
Can you pause that for a second? And now it's up to you. In the interest of your colleagues, look what you've done to everyone else with just making that comment. It's so theatrical, and so unnecessary.
And then the Premier goes to
Why?
what you've made some very serious claims, right?
You have made some very serious claims. If you hold that information, you should be putting that information to Victoria Police without delay.
It seemed like a bit of a diversion tactic, because like, these are very serious claims, and seemed more concerned by 2 things: that the reporter may have had this information rather than it being true, and that the reporter suggested that she sounds disinterested. Like, my reading would be, I probably wouldn't have told the Premier that she looked disinterested, or he or she looked disinterested.
you
That's
can
a
make
kind
an
of-
observation. That is
You
your
can,
right to do that.
Sure, but that's
But
a bit
then-
of like, that's a bit of a subjective opinion about a Premier looking upwards.
The only reason you wouldn't do it is because you know that politicians will seize on it if they have to, in the way that Jacinta Allen did. It's like, why would you want to give her that opportunity?
Exactly. I think it's important to remind people Jacinta Allen was the infrastructure minister under former Premier Daniel Andrews. That's when the bulk of the alleged criminal corruption occurred.
Right.
And so, I mean, this is obviously very relevant to a ministerial role that she held and a portfolio she held.
Yeah. Did the journo retract?
No, the journo
Okay.
didn't retract. And the following day, the reporter, Jess Maggio, spoke to 3AW Breakfast. And she does admit that it kind of slipped out, that she didn't mean to kind of say it. She literally observed it and it slipped out. But then she makes a really important point about this whole notion of going to police, and what really should have been the discussion at that press conference, or what was more in the public interest. And that is that police don't have the powers to investigate allegations of this nature.
The Premier says each day, if anyone has these allegations, they should be taking them to Victoria Police. Victoria Police can't investigate the kinds of claims that are being made about corruption. The people to do that are IBAC and the Fair Work Commission. Now, IBAC doesn't have the powers to investigate third parties specifically linked to these kinds of claims of corruption, and the Premier knows that. IBAC's been asking for these powers for about a decade, since 2017. And further to that, Victorians and every single political party in Victoria is asking for a royal commission.
That's the really interesting part, that they don't have a body that has the powers to investigate the very things that Jacinta Allen is like, oh, this is very serious. If you have that information, go to police.
And she would know full well some of
Yes.
the restrictions involved in going to police, which is that they don't wholly have the powers to investigate this stuff. It's got to come from a independent government commission, IBAC,
which is like our ICAC corruption,
Yeah, yeah.
a government corruption commission. But it is an election year. Multiple government MPs have told the ABC that they believe that the Premier should set up a royal commission over the allegations about the CFMEU. So even though the Victorian Premier is getting pummeled at press conferences, some of her MPs are leaking. It looks like at the moment, Labor is still the favourite to win in November, which I think probably speaks more to the terrible opposition they have in the coalition
Sure.
than to her performance with the media or her handling of this.
Well, interesting that you should mention the word performance, because it is a performance when you do a press conference. You try and, the most gracious interpretation would be that a politician tries to be as clear and as stick to the truth as much as possible and, not kind of perform in any way. But I mean, that was entirely theatre.
Absolutely.
The stopping down and then the like blaming her for what she said and then putting her words as, you know,
Your silence.
an impact on your colleagues, the guilt.
Yeah.
Like guilting someone in real time in a press conferences before a bunch of cameras. Why would you do that?
Yeah. So my no is to Jacinta Allen, but a yes to Jess Maggio because she didn't back down. I mean, it would be tempting to just go, oh, look, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I reckon it would be tempting too because it'd be like awkward and, you know, some outlets are running that live.
Yeah.
So it's going to air as is.
Yes.
Anyway, so that's a big fat no to Jacinta Allen and a watch this space with the CFMEU allegations.
Okay. A bit of a no and a yes together. My no is somewhat, you know what? It's not dissimilar in terms of political diversion tactics, but this one plays out in a very different way. So my no goes to Donald Trump saying that he's going to release classified government files about aliens, okay? Which already, like, I think people already know what I'm going to say.
Oh,
but let me just unpack it. Let me just unpack it because there's a few things going on here.
Okay.
When I first heard that, it made me think of this very, I don't know if it's well known actually, but it's a political strategy called dead catting.
Okay.
Or throwing a dead cat on the table. Have you heard of this?
I hadn't until you mentioned dead catting.
Okay. All right.
But, you know, I mean, I liken it to look over there.
Yeah, that's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
So it's this kind of look, you know, it's a pretty good comm strategy in that it's very effective. So it's good for politicians, bad for democracy.
Okay.
Can be very bad for democracy. So
Bad for cats who end up dead.
Bad for dead cats.
Yeah.
Here's the context though. This started on Feb 14, right? So Valentine's Day, the former president, Barack Obama, went on a YouTuber, newsfluencer, I don't know how to describe him. His name is Brian Tyler Cohen. He's like a progressive newsfluencer who did an interview with the former president. Wide-ranging, they talked about a bunch of stuff. The bit that got quite a bit of attention was this bit.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in, what is it?
Area 51?
Area 51. There's no underground facility unless there's this enormous conspiracy, and they hid it from the President of the United States.
What was the first question you wanted answered when you became president?
Where are the aliens?
Where are the aliens?
Hold a second.
Okay.
Did the interviewer ask a follow-up question to
He
that?
did not.
Well, so
I know.
So the former president says, where are the aliens? I want to know, where are the aliens? He's like, yes, excellent, pertinent question. Let's move on.
Yeah, next question. I think, actually, let me see what the next...
Who is there a person that you most want to meet that you haven't met yet?
That was the next question. Which is partly why I think this thing went so viral, was because he didn't ask him a follow-up question and that was just left to linger there. But the point was, this guy, Brian Tyler Cohen, had introduced this as a speed round. Okay, so he said, I'm just going to ask you some, you know, rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So there was a bit of context for why he didn't ask a follow-up question. Anyway, Barack Obama had to then walk this back on Instagram 2 days after he gave the interview, where he said...
Did he say, I'm joking?
Yes, he sort of said this was in the spirit of the rapid fire question segment, which is why I answered, where are the aliens? It was a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Anyway, it was all left to linger and just hang there for the entire internet. So you can imagine. There was a lot of chatter about this, so much so that, of course, it got to Donald Trump. And here he is being asked about it on his plane. So please excuse the sounds and the audio, right?
Barack Obama said that aliens are real. Have you seen any evidence of non-human visitors to Earth?
Well, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that.
So aliens are real.
Well, I don't know if they're real or not. I can tell you he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that.
What?
He made a big mistake. He took it out of classified information. No, I don't have an opinion on it. I never talk about it.
He doesn't have an opinion on it?
A lot of people do. A lot of people believe it. Do you believe it, Peter?
Ask the
If
journalist.
the president can declassify anything that he wants to, so if you want to make an announcement.
I may get him out of trouble by declassifying.
We know illegal aliens are real.
Yeah, illegal. Only illegals.
The illegal aliens meaning
The illegal
migrants.
Yeah, so just a bit of a jab there at the end about illegal aliens. Hilarious.
But is this not an admission going, oh, but he released classified information, would suggest that it's true, but also he sounds insane. So it's hard to ever know what is true and what is not.
It's truly hard to know what the actual fuck is going on here. There was a question asked to a former president in a weird way. The answer was left to linger. It went to Donald Trump. He probably made it worse
and then
by the answer that he gave. Now everyone is like, I'm sorry, are aliens real or are they not real? Anywho, all of this then leads to Donald Trump going on Truth Social and saying that he is going to direct the Secretary of War to release various government documents.
The Secretary of War.
The Secretary, Pete Hegseth.
Yeah.
To release a bunch of government documents pertaining to aliens and unidentified flying objects and UFOs and various other, I can't remember exactly what they're called now.
This would fascinate a lot of people. I mean, there are people who wholeheartedly believe in the extraterrestrial life and story.
Yes, indeed.
However,
it will fascinate a lot of people and it will also distract a lot of people, which brings me to my political distraction technique known as dead catting, which is usually when a politician or somebody in power does something quite like, I don't know, outlandish or out of character or unusual in order to kind of distract from what they don't want you to look at.
What are you arguing they don't want us to look at?
What other files could they possibly not want people to look at?
Which ones?
Does anything spring to mind?
No.
Are there a bunch of government files that Donald Trump might not want the people of the United States of America and indeed the rest of the world to not be looking at in this moment?
Here's some alien files.
Yes.
Here's some UFOs. Have a look there.
Do not look at these files. Look at these files that I am now instructing the Secretary of War to release.
And that's dead catting.
Yes. Apparently, the term comes from an Australian political strategist named Linton Crosby, who told it to the former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who then revealed it to the world in an article in The Telegraph in 2013.
Not very good at keeping this classified information classified.
No, but it was very interesting what he wrote, which I just want to share a little bit with you of the thing that Boris Johnson wrote about this particular strategy. That is because one thing is absolutely certain about throwing a dead cat on the dining room table. And I don't mean that people will be outraged, alarmed, disgusted. That is true, but irrelevant. The key point, as my Australian friend, Linton, as we've come to know, says, is that everyone will just shout, geez, mate, there's a dead cat on the table. In other words, they'll be talking about the dead cat, the thing you want them to talk about, and they will not be talking about the issue that's been causing you so much grief. Hence, talking about the alien files and not so much talking about Epstein. And people think that Iran is also a dead cat to not talk about the Epstein files.
Okay.
Yes. And Donald Trump would probably be the only exception to the dead catting strategy, which is supposed to be an every now and again thing, but he's just throwing dead cats everywhere. There's dead cats everywhere. Which is why I think people feel so discombobulated with Donald Trump, because they look from one dead cat to the next dead cat to the next dead cat and go,
they're like, is this a political strategy or is this insanity? It's hard to know.
Yeah. Then the two start to blur.
Yeah.
But usually if there's something that a politician does that feels a bit out of character, Donald Trump aside, because everything he does feels either in or out of character and it's very confusing, then it's probably this. It's probably this is what they want you to focus on. Jacinta Allen, you could argue, was employing some kind of dead cat strategy.
Less pre-planned.
Yeah.
That was an off-the-cuff dead cat.
Yeah, it was like, I want you to focus on, I'm going to put the focus on this rather than what it is that we're supposed to be focusing on. So that is my no. And also you said stay tuned for the CFMEU. I'm going to say stay tuned for any release of the alien files. And what that does to conversations about Jeffrey Epstein. Hello, it's Jan Fran here. If you have gotten this far in the show, that means you like or hate what we're doing. Either way, it doesn't matter. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button now to make sure you don't miss any of our content in your feed. Love you. Goodbye. Okay, let's talk about celebs.
Let's do it. Namely, like actors and media personalities, almost like actors and performers.
Media arts and entertainment figures, if you will.
Let's do that. And, whether or not they're allowed to be political or should be political or should say something. Because at every arts festival, film festival, conferences, writers' festival, this kind of fraught space, there's often these moments when celebs speaking out has worked versus sometimes it's backfired. And I guess we wanted to take this moment to explore whether celebs have a duty or a responsibility to speak up about political issues, whether art is inherently political or whether they should keep the politics out of it and just be entertaining. And just a few reflections in light of a few film festivals or an awards nights that have made headlines.
Yes, and quite recently, the most recent of which was the BAFTAs, which is, I don't know, just think of it as like the British Oscars.
Yeah.
That's probably the easiest way. That happened Monday night our time.
Yes.
And look, there were a few things that went down that evening. But as it was happening, because, you know, it's daytime in Australia, so we're all on the internet, we're hearing that the BBC decided to cut the end of a winner's acceptance speech. And part of that end, he said, "Free Palestine."
Yes. And so I started to go looking because I came across it at an arts magazine, which I wasn't too familiar with, initially did the reporting. And I was like, no, I need to see it for myself to verify it. So I went on to BBC's page. I couldn't find it on BBC's page. I went onto YouTube and I could see the full acceptance speech on BAFTA's YouTube page. So BBC is the broadcast partner of the awards night. Akinola Davis Jr., he won for outstanding debut as a writer. And he says, among other things, he talks about occupation and genocide. I'm going to play you the actual version of the acceptance speech that was played in full. This is the end part, because then we'll play the BBC version.
To all those whose parents migrated to obtain a better life for their children, to the economic migrant, the conflict migrant, those under occupation, dictatorship, persecution, and those experiencing genocide, you matter, your stories matter more than ever. Your dreams are an act of resistance. To those watching at home, archive your loved ones, archive your stories, yesterday, today, and forever. For Nigeria, for London, the Congo, Sudan, free Palestine. Thank you.
Okay, that's how he ends his speech.
Yeah. Everyone applauds. They all walk off the stage because he's there with 3 colleagues on the stage. It is absolutely the end of the speech. There's a big round of applause.
Yes. And then you get to the BBC broadcast version. And I had to go and find that on HBO Max. And I was in my lounge room because I couldn't find it online. But I was in my lounge room just like toggling with the remote, like where
I was like,
in
Jane,
the
you
broadcast?
have to find it. You have to confirm. I don't know if it's true what I'm reading.
Yeah. So this is the end of the speech that was broadcast on the BBC, and you'll have to forgive the audio because I'm recording it in my lounge room, like from my television, and also forgive any commentary that you may or may not hear at the end of this video as well.
Thank you all for keeping the faith. To my brother Wale, who's been the closest I've ever had to a father figure, thank you for nurturing this spark and writing this beautiful story. Thank you.
That's it. It ends there.
So that applause.
Hang on.
Fuck you.
That's me.
That is organic commentary. That is a natural reaction from Jan in her living room.
That is a fuck you to the BBC. I was intending to get a clean version of this video,
but it's
because
too good.
I just checked it and I was like, oh, I'll do it again tomorrow, and I didn't have time, so there we go. We had to use that one.
Very good.
Fuck you to the BBC.
I want to make a note that this film that Akinola Davis Jr. is accepting an award for writing. The film is a family drama co-written with his brother, which is why he thanks his brother. But it's set during the 1993 Nigerian election. So it's a film about Nigeria, set in Nigeria by 2 Nigerian brothers. And so cutting out that whole other section, we believe, in order to cut out Free Palestine, because the BAFTAs has formed. They did the same in 2023. They edited out sections that related to Palestine, including a whole award. They didn't play it. They were like, this is too hard to cut. We're just going to drop that award from the from the broadcast.
And they'll probably go, oh we just dropped it. It wasn't because of Palestine.
Yeah.
It wasn't because, like, you do it enough times, you're like, you just don't want to say the
No,
Palestine
because some people
bit,
would
do
say,
you?
well, maybe it was, too long, or they had to truncate a 3-hour broadcast into 2 hours. But, it says for Nigeria, for London, the Congo, for Sudan, Free Palestine, thank you. They cut all of it. They were like, sorry, Nigerian brothers and Nigerian film. That's all got to go. It's all going to go.
It's all got to go. I think the BBC was, a bit concerned, had some worries in the lead up to the BAFTAs and editing, commentary in support of Palestine because of what happened with Bob Villan at Glastonbury. So,
there were reports from insiders leaking saying the BBC were being extra vigilant or extra worried.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to leak any reports from within the BBC for people to know that you're probably everyone's butt cheeks at the BBC were clenched. Put it that way, right?
Yeah.
However, there was some very interesting editing choices made because some things did not get through to the broadcast and yet other things did get through.
Yeah, and it's probably a good point to point out that the broadcast was 2 hours after the event. So when you saw it on BBC, there was a 2-hour delay from people who saw it on BBC to it happening. But sorry, Jan, I cut you off.
Yes, so there was something, the Free Palestine, that entire end bit did not make it into the broadcast, but for reason that I will truly never understand, the N-word did make it into the broadcast.
Yes.
Let me give some context here. There was an unfortunate incident at the BAFTAs. There was an invited guest who had Tourette's syndrome. He yelled out the N-word, just as two African-American presenters, Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo, were on stage. Okay? Again, just a reminder, BBC, it's operating on a 2-hour delay here, my friends. And not only that, but Alan Cummings, who was hosting the event, addressed the fact that viewers and audiences may have heard this word and sort of apologised for it and thank people for their understanding. So the BBC knew it had been said.
And it's an involuntary tick. People with Tourette syndrome sometimes have involuntary ticks. This verbal tick was the reason the N-word was said.
Correct. So, but it was not cut out of the broadcast, my friends. Free Palestine, Congo, Sudan, Nigeria, cut out. That
No.
Not cut out.
Not offensive.
Stayed in.
Not offensive,
What
apparently.
happened there?
Well, the BBC, we don't know, and we'll never know. But we do know that the BBC apologised the next day.
Know because they have to explain themselves.
Well, they put out a long statement in which they don't really explain themselves. They just apologise.
Clearly they're spooked by the Berlinale. I'm extrapolating, but I think that's a fair extrapolation.
I think they're spooked
by the last
everything.
2.5 years.
Yeah, spooked by everything.
Exactly. But for those who don't know, the Berlinale is like the Berlin International Film Festival. That's just what it's called. It happened to wrap up last week.
Yes.
It runs for, almost 2 weeks. And every rich celebrity got asked a question about politics at this Berlinale, and that's because right from the get-go, the tone had been set.
Okay, so Berlinale jury president Wim Wenders comments on the opening day really lit the match. So he and a panel of jurists, they were asked, why has the festival shown solidarity with people in Iran and Ukraine, but not with Palestinians? And whether it meant that they supported the selective treatment of human rights. And this is what he said.
We have to stay out of politics because if we made movies that are dedicatedly political, we enter the field of politics, but we are the counterweight to politics. We are the opposite of politics. We have to do the work of people and not the work of politicians.
Okay, thank you, Wim.
Weird.
Very good.
So that led to a sort of a bit of a domino effect because the Indian author and Booker Prize winner Arundhati Roy pulled out of the festival. 80 plus prominent artists signed a petition about censoring artists who oppose Israel's ongoing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza, and also highlighting the German state's key role in enabling it. With the sale of weapons to Israel, and some of the names in that petition, some really prominent people, including Tilda Swinton and Brian Cox.
Yeah. There were also several celebrities then that started getting asked about
This got funny very fast.
Now there's a cascade of things that have happened, and which also means there's a cascade of things to ask celebrities about.
Yeah, so now journos, and this is the role of journalists, they're like, oh, okay, there's been the petition.
Yeah.
There's been this comment made by the panel. And so journalists are gagging to ask all of these celebrities.
Yeah, what do you think about all of these things? The first one is Michelle Yeoh. Who Everything Everywhere All at Once, she won the Oscar for. She was a well-known Malaysian actress, gets asked about the situation in the United States. Here is her answer.
Well, I don't think I am in the position to really talk about the political situation in the U.S. because, I think, and also I cannot presume to say I understand how it is. So best not to talk about something I don't know about, but...
Okay.
I mean, that's presumably she's being asked about the ICE raids and,
rising fascism in the United
States.
Yeah.
Look, in her defense, she is not American. She lives between Geneva and Paris and her native Malaysia. I mean, that's not an excuse not to know what's going on in the United States, but I mean, she's not an American.
Sorry, I'm not American. I live in Sydney, Australia, and I watched an ICE agent put a bullet in the head of Renee Good. So...
I know.
So I'm sorry, we all saw that. Anyway, you'll come to see that this, I don't know enough about this situation, is actually a pattern of answers.
But I just wanted to point out that, I mean, I know we're journalists, we follow things closely, but some people, like I incorrectly thought that she was American and didn't realise that she's actually Malaysian and lives in Europe.
Sure. There's probably some mitigating circumstance to not ask somebody who maybe doesn't live there, is not following it as closely enough. Fine. Neil Patrick Harris, who is from How I Met Your Mother, Doogie Howser, for those old enough to remember what that is, not me, incidentally. He also gets asked if his art is political and if films can help fight rising fascism. And here's what he says.
We live in a strangely algorithmic and divided world right now. And so as artists, I'm always interested in doing things that are apolitical.
Oh, good.
Because we're all, as humans, wanting to connect in some way. That's why we experience things together.
Yeah, apolitical, like that time he was Tel Aviv's Pride ambassador. Very apolitical.
Apolitical.
Yeah.
Apolitical, except when you want to be a little bit political. Then it's kind of fine. But see what he said about bringing people together? That's another. If I was playing celebrity answer bingo, that's on the board, baby. So I don't know enough about it. Bringing people together.
And world peace, like a Miss Congeniality.
Yeah, it's very social cohesion.
Yeah, I love it.
It's very social cohesion. We move on to Ethan Hawke. He gets asked about celebrities raising their voice against fascism and standing up for human rights and what he thinks about that. And this is his response.
The last place you probably want to look for advice in your spiritual counsel is a bunch of jet-lagged, drunk artists talking about their film.
Okay, well, he got an applause. Spiritual counsel?
Nobody asked him about that.
No.
But my favourite was probably Rupert Grint, who played Ron Weasley on Harry Potter, who was asked about the fact that he supported trans rights when J.K. Rowling spoke out against them. But what does he think of rising fascism in the UK? And this was his answer.
Well, obviously I'm against it. But no, I mean, I choose my moments when to speak, but I think, it's obviously hugely relevant now in times. But I think, you'll hear from me.
You'll hear from him.
Just not now.
Just not now. Nope, but God, he does have something to say and
hugely
very
relevant.
important, hugely relevant in this moment, but not going to say anything in this moment, which I have, some sympathy for. Maybe it's not the right, you haven't come prepped. You're not in the headspace to talk about this stuff. But this idea that's I do have something to say and you will hear it, ladies and gentlemen, just not when you ask me a question about it.
But also by February 2026, do these people not come prepared?
Yeah.
I mean, let's put aside their improv skills because they're actors. But in this political moment, given the last 2.5 years, are they not? Are they really that bamboozled and put on the spot?
There's nothing they can prepare for that will be the right answer here. Because really what they want to say is, I don't want to talk about this because I don't want it to affect
my contracts and my social
I don't want it to affect
following.
anything. This is not my thing. I'm here to just talk about cinema, which is the other thing that they all mentioned. Love of movies on the bingo card.
Yeah.
So even if they did, infinite prep, it's such a minefield for them that they'd probably set a foot wrong somewhere. Again, on the question of should people say something or not say something, there are people who just don't say anything at any point ever. They're very uncomfortable about it, or they say things through their work. And that was something that Paul Thomas Anderson said at the BAFTAs, actually, when he won his award. He was asked about politics. Don't know what the question is, but he was like, something like, I prefer to say it through my film.
Yeah, because his film was pretty much like low-key about ICE raids before ICE raids
one
were in the
battle after
headlines in
another.
the way they were. Yeah, and so it was about that kind of authoritarianism.
And I understand, like, people want to be able to like sit and process and think and not have to say something in the spur of the moment. I get that.
Yeah.
My issue is, I guess, the hypocrisy around this stuff, because even Wim Wenders has been on record saying that every film is political. And actually the most political films are the films that sell themselves as not being political, because they're just here to deliver you the status quo. He said that in the 80s, maybe he's changed his mind, but it just seems that like they're political when they want them to be, or not political when they don't want them to be, and often they don't want them to be because of Palestine.
Yeah. And Wise, like Berlin Film Festival's website describes itself as the most political of all the major film festivals. So it's like, that's your blurb.
You wrote that.
You wrote that.
Like, you said that. No, I'm not even saying that about
and it's not from the 80s. It's from now.
Yeah, like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like they want to have their cake and eat it too, and be like, we're fearless. We say the things that nobody will say. We are the most political film festival in the world. But when people get asked a question about politics, and you'll hear it because I listen to so many of these press conferences, people move them on, or they say, oh, no, we're here to talk about film, or they'll say, look, we're not political, we're about people, we're about, they do the bingo card. So it's like, well, which one is it?
Yeah.
You political or not?
Yeah, and of course the Berlinale, for example, has banned Russian delegations from attending because of the war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's also been vocal about the imprisonment of Iranian filmmakers.
But as far as I know, has not been vocal in the same way about Gaza.
Yeah, which is why the petition by all those artists was signed.
Exactly. And at this point, it really is a matter of pattern recognition, because you start to see it with a bunch of other arts festivals and institutions like Eurovision, for example. The classic example, Russia's banned, Israel not banned.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's like, well, I'm sorry. Like, are you
FIFA as well?
Yeah, I mean, FIFA, that's the sports is a whole other like ball game.
Yeah.
But it's like, do you care about human rights or do you not?
Yeah.
The
other thing that's on my radar is when people's stances are performative, because some would say, oh, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If an actor or a celebrity says something, they're going to get in trouble either way. I mean, but here's an idea of how to get into less trouble. Like, you've got to live what you say. And so some like celebrities face scrutiny because their activism is performative, or when it's at odds with their lifestyle. So like environmental activists like Leonardo DiCaprio has been very vocal about climate change, but then he traveled to accept an environmental award on a private jet. So if you're going to talk, but then you're going to be called out if it's inconsistent or performative.
But see, you can't be perfect. This is the thing. Like, you're going to be called out regardless. No, you can't be perfect. I mean, you wore Adidas sneakers the other day.
But I did, but somebody, and that's the thing, somebody mentioned it.
Yeah.
Because Adidas is on the BDS list, and they noted it actually on this YouTube. And not only did they note that I was wearing Adidas sneakers, they were like, and they look new. And the truth is they were new. They weren't mine though, they were my daughter's. I don't know if that makes it any better.
But my daughter level of detail, they
like,
look new.
I see your new sneakers and they look new. And I was wearing my daughter's shoes.
But so you see, it's like, I don't know how you felt in that moment, but I would feel that would make me, and I will try to fight against this urge, but that would make me just not want to say anything. Because probably not, to be fair. But that I would think about like being like, oh, fuck, I should just keep my mouth shut so that like I don't get called out. Because you invariably will. You cannot be perfect.
Yes, you can't. I mean, to be like
pure,
a Puritan in everything that you do. I mean, there are some more egregious than others. Like,
sure,
I'm going to accept an environmental award in my private jet.
Yeah, sure, fair enough.
I mean, there is, that's from where I'm sitting at, but some other people may be listening going, no, don't wear something that's on the BDS list. Boycotting works.
Yeah. The other thing is like the people who don't say something are one thing, but then it's like you kind of have to think about who is left to say something. And it's often the people who are
have the most to lose.
Or they're just up and coming, or they happen to be, it's no coincidence, brown. In this case, Arab.
Yeah.
If you look at all of the
like that Nigerian writer.
Yeah, exactly.
He won literally best up and coming.
Yeah.
Like, he's literally up and coming, best newcomer.
Yeah. There was a Palestinian director who stood up and gave a speech about Palestine. He's wearing a keffiyeh. There was the Tunisian...
Oh, that's at Berlinale.
That's at Berlinale, yeah. There was the Tunisian filmmaker who made the film The Voice of Hind Rajab.
Yes, and she refused to take the award home.
Yeah. And then there was like a Lebanese filmmaker who also won an award, and she spoke, and, you know, her speech was like incredibly moving.
The human in me, a Lebanese woman, a witness, and I must share my story with you. I'm sorry.
Even apologizing.
I made a film about a child.
You know what I mean? But feeling like you have to apologize for doing that?
With superpowers, who brings down 2 Israeli fire jets because their intrusive sounds wake him up from his sleep. That is cinema. But in reality, children in Gaza, in all of Palestine, and in my Lebanon, do not have superpowers to protect them from Israeli bombs.
I know. And
so, I have goosebumps from that.
I know. And that was beautiful. So then when I look at, we've got to stay out of politics. You know, when I was talking about drunk men or drunk people who are on a flight or whatever, I'm like, it's the Ethan Hawkes of this world. And I'm just using Ethan Hawke because we heard a snippet from him earlier. But an older, straight, white man who has the least to lose, who should be doing more, I think. Otherwise, it's left to this woman who may or may not ever be nominated for something. This Nigerian-British writer.
Who won the debut award,
And we know what it's like. We know what it's like to be iced out, and it may never be overt, but who may never get an invite or never be nominated again.
But so that's what I'm saying about, like, before you think, oh, well, you know, celebrities have a right not to say something, which they do, especially the bigger celebrities with the bigger profiles, the bigger platforms, more money, more connections, all of that. But just think, like, if they don't say something, who is saying something? Because there's an opposite side of that coin. And that's what I feel gets lost in a lot of these discussions.
Yeah.
So, like, could you maybe say something at least in solidarity with your colleagues, like por favor, or no?
Yeah.
No seems the answer to that question because they don't know enough. It's about cinema. Really, we're here to bring people together.
And can I have some more champagne, please?
Yeah. Exactly.
Look, and I do think generationally that's probably changing because of fandom expectations. People, particularly Gen Z and Gen Z in the public eye, because they are a kind of a very social media, almost celeb voyeuristic culture, expect more. And we have seen some examples of like Taylor Swift, who came out in 2018 as a Democratic voter. And then in 2023 on her Instagram, she urged young voters to vote. And we saw that it had an impact, like 35,000 registrations on vote.org that very day that she put a post out.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I think, and so some people
there's
like,
a tangible...
shut up, Taylor Swift. Actually at the time, Charlie Kirk tweeted, I really enjoyed when Taylor Swift stayed out of politics. It's like, well, it can be incredibly effective. It can galvanize supporters. And I don't think that kind of that bingo card you were talking about, I'm just not sure audiences moving forward are going to buy that.
It's not enough, is it?
No, not anymore.
It just
maybe in his heyday, maybe in Ethan Hawke's heyday, but not anymore.
It really does not feel like enough. Like, I'm listening to these answers and all I want to do is put the Curb Your Enthusiasm music over the top of them. Like, they sound like clowns, I'm sorry to say. You know, and it's like this time calls for something different, whether we like it or not. I don't feel like we are in normal times.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there is, to bring it back to the media, I don't know how you feel about this. And, you know, one half of me wants to praise the journos for asking these questions, and another half of me is very cynical about the media moment that they're trying to create. Because everybody knows that when you ask celebrities a thorny question, and whatever they say is going to make headlines. They agree, makes headlines. Disagree, make headlines.
Sure.
Not answer, make headlines. Fumble, make headlines. AKA now, look at us. We're sitting here talking about this. You know,
but I don't know if I think this is much of a, I gotcha moment. If anything, I'm like, fucking finally, journalists actually asking questions and not avoiding the elephant in the room, which they've done a very good job of in many cases for 2.5 years. Journalists are often also too scared to even ask, because who knows if they'll ever be invited again, if they'll get their credentials to attend that press conference, if they're going to get in trouble and have complaints to their boss. So if anything, I was kind of relieved that journalists were asking these questions, because I dare say 18 months ago they probably wouldn't have as much.
I think they're spurred on by the rising fascism as well, because 18 months ago things felt very different in America to what they do now. Even.
Exactly.
And, you know, fascism is no friend of cinema.
Yeah,
it's like
all the media,
exactly.
All
whether I know they like to think that they're above it, the artists and the journalists. We always like to think we're just, you know, the observers. There's a stand separate from society, but it's like, girl, that comes for all of us.
Yeah,
like it's going to come for all of us at some point.
You know, Jen, some people would ask, like, why should we care what celebs think? Like, why should they weigh in?
Yeah, well, because they're people and they're citizens of the world, and really, like, politics is about the citizenry. Like, if they're talking about being for the people, they are the people.
Yeah.
And fascism, whether you like it or not, is coming for you. It's coming for your art, Ethan Hawke and co.
Like, even more than that, a lot of these people are role models. People love them. They adore them. They follow what they wear, what they say, what they do. There's this whole... there's a whole new level, I reckon, because of social media, of fan culture. People wanting a glimpse into their lives, what they eat, how, like, it has real influence. And we've seen pockets of examples of that with people like Taylor Swift.
Yeah. Yes, I also think, like, when you have a platform, you have to some extent an obligation to use it responsibly. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you then have to talk about politics. But in a particular time where there is so much fraud, so many fraught things happening that directly impact not just you, but your industry and your colleagues and your friends. And, you know, if you want to expand it out the wider world, then you have some degree of responsibility to engage with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way we see it. But some of them may be like, you know what, I just want to do my thing and be rich and get my next contract.
You know what? People like, who gives a fuck what actors have to say? I give a fuck about every single person standing up and saying bad things are bad. I'm sorry, I really give a fuck about it right now. And I never used to give a fuck about it, but I've never been more acutely aware of the division between power and the people. And the people means everyone. Yeah. If you're the people, you're everyone.
And
if you have a platform,
and these people have more power than the regular people. So I guess that's where that whole, you have a responsibility.
Exactly. I just don't think these are normal times, man.
Yeah.
And I hope that I'm not, like, exaggerating or going crazy or feeling
No,
particularly
you're not.
bad. I'm
Like,
not, right?
All
I'm
the
not.
indicators.
All the indicators. The fire danger's red.
Yeah.
You know? So have we arrived at a conclusion? What should we...
I think the conclusion is that these are unprecedented times. The celeb bingo card response don't cut it anymore. We understand that some people opt out all the time. We probably have more respect for people like that.
Yeah, and the hypocrisy fucking sucks and we see it.
Yes, the a la carte allyship is fucking shit, and yes, we see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
To our yeses.
Yes.
I'm going to start, please.
Okay.
My yes goes to an independent media publishing company. No, there's a better way of saying that. It goes to an independent media organization / Substack newsletter called Dropsite News.
Yep.
You know Dropsite. We
do.
all know Dropsite because we have been following it very, very closely for the last 2.5 years. They have done some excellent reporting on Gaza. That's not what my yes is about, though. Just some background. It was founded by a bunch of ex-journalists who'd done quite a lot of work in mainstream media in the US, and it says that it is dedicated to exposing the crimes of the powerful, particularly in overt and secret conflicts where the US government is playing a key role. So when you have the Washington Post shutting down all of its international bureaus and becoming a lot more insular and focused on the United States, this outfit is saying we are looking internationally at the US's role in other parts of the world. So that's already very good. Anyway, they've done very, very comprehensive work on the Epstein files, and will come as no surprise that their focus on Epstein is the connections that he has with all of these very important, powerful people around the world and these very important, powerful countries, Israel included. And I want to give you an example of some of the coverage that they've had just recently. One headline, the Israeli government installed and maintained a security system at Epstein's apartment. I didn't know that.
Yes. My gosh, I didn't know that.
I hadn't heard that from anywhere else. What do you mean? What are you talking about? That's fucking crazy. Another one. Leadership would like your help. Indian billionaire tapped Jeffrey Epstein before Modi visits to US and Israel. Why is Jeffrey Epstein being tapped ahead of the Indian leader's visit anywhere? Anyway, such questions just made me think that a lot of the reporting around Epstein is focused on the kind of salacious nature of individuals, right? Especially Prince Andrew's arrest.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, this guy's a creep. He's going to get, rolled from the monarchy. He's not in the line of succession. What's happening to him individually? Who else is on the Epstein list? Feels like there's a lot of finger pointing, which I understand, and individuals should be held to account, and the sex trafficking is fucking disgusting and everyone should be in jail. But there's this whole other element to it around Epstein's connections to all of these very important people.
Well, the information's there. You just need to mine it. You just need to go with a certain lens.
Exactly.
And look for certain find keywords and look for it.
Pattern recognition, like what is happening here, which I think they've done in a way that I haven't seen other people do. And just shout out to also Lamestream, who has been very much covering this in very similar ways, asking the questions of like, why is Epstein tied to Mongolia, for example? Did you know this? He was one of 6 advisors to the Mongolian president. Do you know who was one of the other 6 advisors?
I only know because of Lamestream, former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd.
What the?
Yeah.
Like, why is Epstein sitting on any board with Kevin Rudd advising the president of Mongolia about anything? I don't understand. So that is, what they go into on Dropsite, which I think is very important and also very interesting, and they're doing great work. So go and check them out, Dropsite News.
Just a reminder with journalism, it's, the questions media outlets aren't asking are almost as important as the ones they are asking. And that, with independent media, we're getting more and more of these sorts of perspectives.
Yeah. And look, to be fair, I did see the Kevin Rudd Mongolia connection on the Fin Review. They did do a story about that. But Dropsite just does it very well and very consistently.
Yeah, and they've made it clear that their remit is to look the US and the outside world, which I think is increasingly important. Okay, so my yes also goes to an independent outfit, slightly
Kel Surprise.
Crikey's. In particular, Crikey's podcast called Cut Through. And the episode is Meet Big Brother, Palantir's Australian expansion. So Cam Wilson, for those who read Crikey, does excellent work. He usually, writes investigative pieces online, but he did this really good episode where he walks through Palantir, exactly what they do, who they are. They're a data and surveillance company. And what I really enjoyed about it was the explanation that, on paper, Palantir, data, surveillance, interesting, but explores its deep integration with state power. Also, who it's run by. It's run by figures from the tech right who are not shy about where they sit politically, in that we just need the West to be best and we need to do what we need to do at all costs, which kind of like they've been very overt with their politics.
Yes, artists being political, state says no.
Yeah.
Billionaire tech bros being political, jump in bed.
Absolutely. Yeah, not only jump in bed, let's jump in bed with the US government. And Cam Wilson talks about the links to the violent and often, sometimes unlawful ICE raids. Also the allegations around Palantir software, AI assistant targeting being used by the Israeli military in Gaza, and how a lot of what they do is kind of justified under that umbrella term of innovation. It's just innovation, guys. This is
tech and innovation.
They only do good things. West is best.
Okay.
But where it really lands and gets interesting is Cam Wilson did this great investigative piece where he found a link between Australia's Future Fund. I don't know if you know what Future Fund is, but it's a independently managed sovereign wealth fund. So it's essentially like Australian government's long-term fund. So
Right.
it's like our money, the Australian government's money, and it gets invested.
Yeah.
And found that Future Fund holds a $100 million stake in Palantir.
A $100 million stake?
Yeah, the Australian government. And that there's evidence of government departments working on or giving contracts, security contracts to Palantir. So we don't really fully know the extent of what Palantir does or surveils in Australia. We know that the Australian government or the fund has $100 million in it, and that there are contracts between the Australian government and Palantir.
But no details of what those contracts are for?
Not a great amount of detail. Because, again, data
Innovation.
analytics.
Yeah.
Innovation. Usually don't find out. Like it's difficult. And he talks about the opaque ways in which they operate and the difficulty in finding out exactly what they do. We still don't have exact information on what this AI-assisted technology is doing in Gaza and just how much it's helping the Israeli military attacks.
Kill Palestinians.
Anyway, I just thought it was really good because I've seen bits and pieces and it was just a really good explainer globally, and also hearing from these tech bros made my skin crawl a little bit.
Can you tell us where to find it?
Yes, head to
Cut Through?
Crikey's Cut Through podcast. If you search that, I will also put it in the show notes. I think it's a good listen. And another shout out to independent media doing good work.
Okay, good. 2 very strong guesses there. Proud of us. I'm proud of me, frankly.
Well, I'm proud of the people who did the work.
We're obviously proud of them too. No, well done. Well done to them. And well done to us for seeing it and talking about it. How about that? And well done to us for getting through another episode of We Used to Be Journos for this week.
Every week we say we're going to pack less into the show.
I know.
But then the world just turns up again.
Hey, actually, call-outs are really good. We did one about our yeses and we got a resounding answer. I'm going to shut my laptop for this because this is how I always do the call-out. Do you guys want these episodes to be shorter?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question.
That's a good question for our listeners.
They're generally around the 1 hour mark, give or take 5 or so minutes.
I mean, I could personally talk for ages and there's so much to fit into the show.
Yeah.
Like we have the cull stuff, which we did today.
Yeah.
But I'm just keen because there's another way that we can do it.
Yeah.
Where perhaps we split the episodes or we save something for a later episode or something, there's options. But I'm just wondering from our listeners, like what they would like. Would you like shorter episodes? Are you happy with the length? Would you like longer episodes?
Oh, okay. Yeah, like we could be like the Diary of a CEO and just like chat for 3.5 hours.
Well, we probably could. We bring a lot of evidence and a lot of information and a lot of,
it's
things
hard
that we
when you
build
want to be
on.
factual and have analysis and not just shoot from the hip.
But I think it's actually a question worth asking to our listeners and our viewers on YouTube. Hello, if you're watching this there.
And the truth is, though, the only responses we're going to get are from those who stay to the end of the episode.
Oh, that's true. So you guys probably want even longer episodes. All right. Well,
let's see what these guys say.
Large margin of error there.
Yeah, let's see what these guys say. We can ask it again at the top of the episode where most people are.
Okay. Maybe next week we'll ask it at the top of the episode. That's it. Goodbye. Love you.
Okay, bye.